disruption, and those wind gusts could be damaging. But the worst of the winds and the rain move through by the start of Thursday, a day which begins with plenty of sunshine and actually it stays largely dry and bright into the afternoon, although there will be some wet weather returning to the west of Scotland before the day is out. Friday, unsettled in the north, less unsettled in the south. Saturday brings more rain, but it stays mild.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
(2024), a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock, the top story. The UK and France are to deepen their cooperation in tackling small boat crossings with greater intelligence sharing and enhanced aerial surveillance. The Home Secretary and his French counterpart agreed to tackle illegal immigration across the Channel faster, with James cleverly adding that France is an essential partner to prevent illegal migration. The Home Secretary praised French police and border officials for their work in reducing the number of small boats reaching the UK by 36% last year compared with 2022. Devolved government will return to Northern Ireland after a 2-year boycott. The Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland has now backed a deal on post-Brexit trade agreements, which also means goods will move more freely from mainland Britain. The DUP said the deal will bring real change for the country, while Sinn Féin said it was a day of optimism, adding that Irish unity was now within touching distance. Westminster's Northern Ireland Secretary said the agreement was a welcome and significant step. It's expected details of the deal will be released tomorrow. The UK's total population is set to hit 70 million in 2026, and it's due to immigration. That's a decade sooner than was expected as well. New ONS figures project that immigration is due to add an extra 6.1 million people to the UK's population by 2036. The ONS says it shows the likelihood of higher levels of international migration over the long term than in previous estimates. It comes as the government says new visa changes will make a tangible difference to migration figures. Meanwhile, a Labour MP has told GB News the party should fight the next election on a pledge to bring net migration down to under 100,000 per year. A raft of restrictions are due to come in force within weeks after Rishi Sunak vowed to do what was necessary to bring the numbers down. But speaking earlier to GB News' political editor Christopher Hope, Khalid Mahmood said the plan should be in Labour's manifesto.
The more of our own people we train, the less of those people will come in.
And what's your number, though, to ask you?
I would certainly be very happy with less than 100,000, but we need to work at that, and we need to put training, we need to proper resources into those places to get those young people working.
Do you want that in your party manifesto?
Well, I certainly would like, and I think the Labour Party is moving towards that, yes.
And finally, the Prime Minister's been accused of playing games rather than trying to help resolve the long-running train drivers' dispute over pay. It comes as passengers faced continued travel disruption today as ASLEF union train drivers launched a fresh wave of walkouts. Downing Street says it will consider strengthening minimum service levels after train operators opted not to use the new law during strikes. Greater background to all those stories available at gbnews.com. And if you fancy some GB News alerts springing onto your phone screen, scan the QR code on the screen now. Now it's time for Headliners.
Thank you, Polly. Hello and welcome to Headliners, your run through the next day's newspapers with 3 top comedians. I'm Leo Kearse, and tonight I'm joined by the sharp tongues of Scott Capurro and Cressida Wetton. How are you both doing?
Fine, how are you?
Was that, you were actually showing us your sharp tongue. It did actually look sharp there.
Does, yeah, I've been sharpening it for you.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I know. It's so scary.
Right, I noticed you've kept your tongue in your mouth and
Well, mine's only sharp on very rare occasions if I'm really angry.
Right.
But if you use it sparingly, people are more shocked.
OK, well, let's have a look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. The Daily Mail leads with Bashir. I was a victim of racism inside the BBC. I knew they were racist. The Telegraph has Navy ready to send carrier to Red Sea. The Guardian has state of NHS should be declared national emergency, experts say. The Times leads with little room for big tax cuts, Hunt tells Tories. The iNews has Cameron didn't clear two-state solution speech with number 10. And finally, the Daily Star has Rise of the Cyborgs. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Mail, Scott.
In the end, the Daily Mail, Bashir says, I was a victim of racism inside the BBC. Apparently, he says that they kept him on a non-white status of the BBC, especially during the scandal over Diana's remarks where she said there are 3 of us in this marriage during that famous interview. And he said that what he heard back as feedback was from the BBC was how dare, quote, a second-generation immigrant of non-white working-class roots had the tenacity to enter a royal palace.
Yeah.
He felt that atmosphere when he was working with the BBC, that even the people he was working with felt that about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be clear, that's not a quote, is it? That's his projection. It's how he felt. It's not an email from the BBC saying, mate, we wish you'd have been white.
No, but that would have been good.
But
no,
we don't know if they did say that because there's a trove of emails that's been released that have been redacted.
Yes.
Like it's FBI stuff about you know the shooting of John F. Kennedy. So they've blacked out all these
this
screens
time,
and the emails.
We thought they were trying to hide something about Diana, something distasteful, and actually maybe they were racist towards Martin Bashir, and that's worth £150,000.
Yeah. But they didn't hide anything. They exposed everything they could about her, and it made him a huge star. I mean, he was already well known, obviously, but internationally, he skyrocketed.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem for either one of them. It got her out of that terrible marriage, and it got him even more money.
Yeah, I mean, are you surprised to see him suddenly, you know, pop up, you know, so many years later and say, listen, you know what, they were racist? I mean, because he's left it a bit late. I feel like we're in the tail end of people moaning about racism.
I think the first line of the paragraph, the second paragraph says it all. It says the former star reporter. They call him a former star reporter. And I think he's trying to make him come back. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, she's dead, so why not, right?
Yeah.
Other people are making money off her back.
Yeah, well, some people just haven't stopped.
No.
So, yeah, there's new books for everyone. Anyway, moving on to the Telegraph, Cressida. What have they got in the front cover?
Navy ready to send carrier to Red Sea.
Is this a pigeon or a...
It's, well, I know the Navy is in a bit of a state, isn't it? I mean, we know that because if the British Navy is sending a boat somewhere, it's news. So that already tells you that
we found a boat somewhere.
We found a boat and we've got enough staff to send it somewhere, so we're going to do it. But there is also trouble at sea. So Britain ready to send either HMS Queen Elizabeth or HMS Prince of Wales. We've got a choice of two. Fancy that, to the Gulf amid Houthi attacks on shipping. So there's an American ship out there at the moment doing all the heavy lifting, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, but it's got to go back to America. I guess they have to top up on fuel and whatever they take with them.
The boys need a day off, too.
You need to go to a port and have some R&R.
Yeah,
That's
do
it.
something. Yeah.
Chill out. So meanwall, the Brits are going to step in. So it's going to be like a carry-on film for a bit while we go in and do our best.
We're here.
Because the Houthis have said, guys, we're in here for the long haul. This isn't going anywhere quickly. So we're sending a ship to plug a gap.
Matron!
I mean, this whole thing has sort of exposed how vulnerable the West is. We used to think we're just vulnerable because we don't have any borders and anybody who wants can just stroll in unstopped. But we're also vulnerable because all our flat-screen TVs and plastic trinkets are sent on these big ships that have to come past, not so salubrious countries.
No,
I don't get how Palestine is so poor. It's next to the busiest port in the world. How did that work out?
I don't know.
It's weird, isn't it?
I mean, I've got some theories, but I don't think I can see them on TV.
So we're going to see Primark empty in a minute. No landfill for us to buy.
I guess so, yeah.
No tap.
Yeah, we could see the surge. Just as inflation starts coming down, we could see it surge back
There's so many little boats in the channel the British Navy could borrow. They're just floating around with people in them. You can put them to work. That's what they want, right?
Do you think we could man some sort of gun on one of those boats?
Maybe.
If you turn it into a reality TV show, anything is possible.
Yeah, that's a plan. That is a plan. Anyway,
throw money at it.
Moving on, what's the iNews got in the front cover, Scott?
Cameron didn't clear his two-state solution speech with number 10. The first thing he didn't clear was the legitimacy of the two-state solution speech, which is minimal. It doesn't really exist, a two-state solution. And then he didn't ask his boss if he could do it. He just went forward with it. But I think he thinks because he's the head of foreign whatevers that he can just say what he wants. And he used to be prime minister. And he is kind of now anyway, so, right? He's got a lot of credentials. So.
I mean, Rishi's hanging on, by his fingertips.
Yeah, he's out of the job already. He's already being fired, I think.
Yeah, do you think we could see a return of Cameron in the hot seat, and a return of Trump in America?
Well,
everybody's doing a sort of a comeback to it.
Yeah, that no one's letting any new blood in, are they? I don't know. He wouldn't be my first choice.
He wasn't my first choice last time
Well,
round.
no, exactly. But it's possible, isn't it? I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right. He's already been there. He feels like it's just coming home, He's seen Suella do it fairly recently.
Yeah. And the wife's on the phone saying, just say it, David. Anyway, yes. I need my nails done. I need my back waxed. Are you there? Hello? I mean, they're busy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time to check in with Rishi.
And some Tory MPs have said that, this is a strange time to be coming out and suggesting a two-state solution. I mean, it's been a tough few months for Hamas, with people bombing them and shooting at them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's nice that, David Cameron has come out and given them some good news.
He also didn't check it with Hamas because they don't want a two-state solution either. I mean, no one in Israel or Palestine believes that would ever happen.
Right.
It's always been...
It always feels like this kind of post-Second World War we know best whenever I hear somebody like Cameron coming along and saying, now, what we should do? Like, oh, really, David?
Well, it's, ironically, it's a fantasy of Dwight D. Eisenhower, who's the name of that ship you mentioned earlier, who came up with the idea 70 years ago, and it's never gone anywhere past paper on a desk.
Right, yeah. I mean, this seems to be a recurring theme in Western foreign policy. We look at lines on a map and we're like, yeah, you know what, Bangladesh can go here and Pakistan can go here and, you know, it'll be fine. We'll work it out later.
Israel and Palestine were organised in the way they are, the borders matching each other, to fail anyway. I mean, the UK and the US wanted to stay that way, and they've got what they wanted. Yeah. They're just battling a war for property right now, actually. Yeah. And they don't really care about what goes on otherwise. So.
Yeah. Well, finally, let's have a look at the Daily Star. What have they got in the front cover, Cressida?
Rise of the cyborgs. So this is Elon Musk's latest. I saw Elon Musk on Joe Rogan once, and Joe Rogan said, do you think we'll ever be cyborgs? And Elon Musk picked up his phone and he said, you already think with this. And now he's got what he wants. He's put a chip in somebody. I know, right? Wow. And it's so true. If you lose your phone, you can't think. You can't get a cab. You can't do anything. So he's now put a chip in somebody's brain. So this is progress. And it's showing promising neuron spike detection, which is what we were all hoping for.
What does that mean?
It's little hairs that they've put in the scalp of this person. It's like a hair transplant. And
so it's not actually right into the brain?
No, it's right below the surface of the skull. Right. And it sends messages, hopefully, to limbs, they hope, because they think this will help people maybe move who can't move. They haven't identified the patient. We don't know who it is. Right. And people are really interested to find out who.
Have you seen anybody walking funny?
Yes. And I asked them, do you have a chip in your brain? And 4 out of 5 said, yes, they do.
Right. Yeah. Some people, I've met some people with one on their shoulder. So, I mean, it makes sense to move it just...
Well, they've been doing this for a while for people with epilepsy to try to predict when their next seizure will be. Right. Not the first time.
Monitoring the brain waves. So, I mean, Cressida, does this sound like it's something that's going to let people control their own limbs rather than something that's going to let megalomaniacal billionaires control people?
That's a great question, Leah. I mean, most of us can control our own limbs anyway. Yeah. So we don't. What?
Well, we claim we can.
But we're talking...
I think this is good for lie detectors.
Chips like this can break, if you've got a severed spinal cord or something like that, they can bypass that and give paraplegics...
Yes.
Can we take it out of our head, put it on a computer and download Spanish and then put it back in our head? We can speak Spanish fluently. That'd be great, right? That's what we want. We want to pick up tasks. We don't want somebody reading our thoughts. That's what we're afraid of.
Well, I think that's the next thing, isn't it? Lie detectors, or kind of Clockwork Orange style. You know, we've shown you these images. How's your body responding? Do find out what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, this is the worry for me. So much of our society is based around surveillance. We've got CCTV cameras.
But we know what you're thinking.
Now it's gone into the home. Now it's gone into the home with like Alexa, and you know that's basically a hot wire to the FBI.
Now, though. I've been watching you on Facebook. Used to be interesting.
No, but if they start saying, you know, you can get your pension if you hook up to this thing, you'll be the first one not to get your pension, won't you? That'll be...
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to walk around naked in my flat again. Anyway, that's the front pages done. We'll get under the covers with you in a moment to talk about another record surge in immigration, Muslims going cold on Labour, and a cold shower for tax cuts. See you in a moment.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there. with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Carson. I'm still here with the comedians Scott Capurro and Cressida Wetton. And kicking things off in this section with the Mail. And if diversity is strength, it looks like Britain's going to be the Incredible Hulk.
Immigration will add 6.1 million to the population by 2036. Apparently, the projections are much higher than had been predicted in the past. I looked it up, and The Guardian in 2017 predicted a stunning growth to 70 million by 2050. So, yes, this is much more than that.
Wow, we're killing it.
I know. Well, part of the problem is we're not killing it. Those old people are living too long. People living way past 85. And that term natural growth is now, there's more births than deaths. So,
or more deaths than births.
No, there should be a lot more.
People are living so long.
Yeah, it should be really separate.
There's not enough death, is what he's saying.
Oh, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Or birth.
Yeah.
We've just got the same old people hanging around for decades.
It's almost even the number of births and deaths because people are living for so long.
And economists say that, you know, we need to have mass immigration to bring people in because people aren't having enough babies, and we've got to, you know, create GDP to look after the
That's
old
the problem. We need more abortions.
No,
we need more abortions, obviously.
We're in a population decline. I think the fertility rate in the UK is around 1.4, 1.5, and around the world it's plummeting. We're not having babies, but people aren't having babies because they can't afford houses. People can't afford houses because there's too many people, so house prices are too expensive.
You can't hear yourself.
House prices are too expensive.
Oh, God.
There's
I love it when he does this rant. He's the only one saying it.
Because immigration.
There's a lot of babies being born. There's too many. We got too many.
There's not too many babies. There's nowhere near enough.
We got way too many.
There's nowhere near enough.
Look, maybe when you're in a coffee shop, you feel there's too many babies on a train. That can be annoying. But no, people, trust me, I've thought about this.
There's 2 strollers outdoors, the flat upstairs from us. And they have a bunch of equipment for catering, and 2 strollers. Clearly, there's too many people eating in that room, right?
Well, they're not the norm. He's right. On average,
well, they kill the old people, I guess. Stop the
they've tried. They tried.
Put a chip in their brain that says dead. Jump out the window. Jump out the window.
Anyway, it mightn't be that. It might not be growing as much. They said they won't know until November, which is after the election. So before then, we can have all this great ideas about how we're going to...
The medical business keeps people alive. My father lived till he was 87. Right. Drinking a liter of brandy every 3 days and smoking 2 packs a day. That's way too long.
But at least he was contributing to the economy through all the alcohol duty.
Well, he certainly is now, because I don't need to do this show anymore. But I'm just saying, it would have been better if he'd gone a long time ago. I could have bought a house for Cressida. She would be living in a cellar somewhere. Or on a boat.
I dream of a cellar.
But do you think we need old people to be economically active for longer? Because there's this assumption that, you know, you hit 60 and then all of a sudden you start playing golf for the next 40 years.
I won't be retiring at 60.
Yeah.
No
there's a lot
way.
Of old people like only active in Bethel Green drinking at the pub down the street. A lot of people spending a lot of cash on booze. So they're turning over some money, you know. They do stop working at an early age here. I think mostly Caucasian people do. They stop working at an early age, but they want to have a bit of fun, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe just have fun at the weekends and keep on working. Because at the moment, our economy is like a Ponzi scheme that seems to be dependent on people coming in at the bottom and generating GDP. But the trouble is, when you're just taking whoever comes across in a boat, I mean, 75% of Somalians in the UK are in social housing, so you know that's not a sort of net contribution to the economy.
That's a painful thing to hear when you're looking at one beds, if I'm completely honest.
Nobody wants to come in at the bottom.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, having fun at the weekend. The Guardian now, and a power-sharing deal has been agreed in Northern Ireland. Hey, if they can do it, maybe there's hope for Israel and Palestine as well, Chris.
We are the
world. Sinn Féin says United Ireland within touching distance, the Stormont deal agreed. So the party prepares to claim Northern Ireland's First Minister post for the first time. So they've never been in power before, have they, Sinn Féin? At the top of the... So this
they have been for a while, but that's one of the reasons why the DUP backed out, because they didn't like it. They wanted to rearrange it, but they couldn't.
Right, but not officially. They've been growing in popularity.
They won the last election.
Yeah.
Right.
Originally Northern Ireland was set up so it would have a Protestant majority, which would, ensure the sort of the DUP
Catholics have more babies. They do. The Catholics have more babies.
Well, this is the thing. Demographics is destiny, which people who are pro-immigration don't seem to realise. At some point, there's going to be more of them than there are of you, and the similar thing has happened in Ireland, where there are now Catholics are now more plentiful than Protestants.
But the government has offered a $3.3 billion financial package if they get this together in Northern Ireland. But what happens when the country forms into one, which is what Sinn Féin wants? Where does that package go? Do they pay it back?
But then Sinn Féin wants Ireland to be reunified.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Ireland
The Irish don't want Belfast.
No.
They don't. No, there's too many criminals. And also, if you noticed, the Irish government has kind of done some nice stuff over the last few years with marriage equality and abortion rights, women's rights to choose, which is not the same in Northern Ireland. And they really don't want to backpedal. They don't want to step back in time, and they'll have to with the thugs from Belfast. They'll hold a gun to their head and make them vote the way they want them to vote.
Those thugs in Belfast are some of our best viewers.
So, oh my God. I like the people, but the DUP, geez, when they're not, human trafficking, they're selling cocaine. And I don't mind a couple lines.
But why do you not like them?
Exactly, I don't mind a couple lines. But God, those Eastern European hookers are expensive in Belfast. I'd rather just bang a local. Seriously. Save 20 pounds and buy a couple more lines of coke. They don't understand how a party works anymore. They're not fun.
Yeah, well, it's more fun than crossing the water to Scotland. OK, let's move on. I think we've done that topic. We've got The Guardian again. And Labour admitted that they opened the borders to bring in people who'd vote for them. But it's now backfiring on them, Cressida.
So, UK considering recognition of a Palestine state, Lord Cameron tells Arab ambassadors.
No, sorry, this is number 8. We covered that one in the thing.
I did think that link didn't make any sense.
Yeah, me too. I was like, wait a minute, my name's on that paper.
OK, let's try that again.
Okay.
Labour acts on fears Muslims will not vote for party over Gaza stance. That makes so much more sense.
Totally.
Yeah, so Labour, they're polling Muslim. There have been polls in the Muslim community, and well, we know this anyway, that typically Muslim people are likely to vote for Labour. In the last election, half of Muslims voted for... That's not half of those that voted, that is half of Muslims.
All right.
In the UK, and a quarter didn't vote. So it shows you that it's a big problem.
Well, yeah, and of the Muslims who did cast a vote, 85% voted for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, which is an insane...
Right.
That's
very popular man.
They really liked something about Jeremy Corbyn. Not sure what it was.
What do you think it is? Yeah.
Well, and they really don't like something about Keir Starmer. So that's where we're at. It all sort of went wrong for Starmer in October when he said that he felt Israel had the right to withhold power and water from Gaza, which is that's a very strong thing to say, isn't it?
But it was the power and water that Israel was supplying to them. So it's like, I think during World War II, Britain had the right to stop giving bunches of flowers to the Nazis.
And Palestine has their own source of water, which they distribute in their own way.
Yeah.
Have you played Israel?
No.
I support Israel because they book me, but I'd love to play Gaza, but I don't want to bomb. But I also think that these two sides, I don't think that Europe understand. You can't change an ideology.
Yeah,
you can't kill it.
Yeah.
You know?
And these sort of internecine conflicts go way deeper than just, oh, these guys are a bit grumpy at these guys. It's, goes thousands of years
Some people
back.
would say demographics are destiny. You know, I've heard that somewhere recently.
Yeah, I did too. Just move them around. The people moved around all the time. The thing is, in the U.S., people don't really. I was just there, and it seems as though even the media and the social media don't really understand what's going on and why the UK is involved. I don't think Americans understand killing people over an ideology.
Yeah.
They understand killing people over money or territory, which actually is what this is. But it's not being described that way or presented that way in social media.
Yeah.
It's being shown as something more, in a way, higher, more ethereal.
Yeah, yeah.
Like these people just don't get along because they don't have the same beliefs. But if you've played Tel Aviv, you've played Jerusalem, you've played for those audiences, they were getting along quite well for a very long time.
For about 2 weeks. But, I mean, do you think the left, the Labour Party in this country, are sort of playing a sort of self-defeating game by courting the Muslim vote? And we've seen it backfire in America, in Hamtramck, a town in America, I think it was in Michigan. It was the first town in America to elect a majority Muslim council, and at the time progressives were like, "This is so wonderful. This is, this is such an FU to Donald Trump."
They shut down everything.
And the first thing they did was ban the pride flag. The Muslim council came out and they're like, "Listen, no more pride flags."
I've been looking at
They
this.
locked the library and shut down the public pool and everything. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
There's this website, the Muslim, or an organisation called the Muslim Vote, and on their website they detail anywhere that there's a large Muslim population, they give the name of the MP and they say whether or not they voted in the ceasefire vote. And so people can just look on there and decide whether or not to... I mean, that's quite...
Right?
Yeah, but they've done all the work for you, so you can just log in, have a look and make your decision. They're telling people who to vote for.
OK, well, moving on, we've got The Independent, and the International Monetary Fund wants to keep us paying the highest taxes ever, Scott.
Yeah, apparently they say that the International Monetary Fund has said that any tax cuts could be very challenging to achieve considering Britain's aging population and mounting debt pile. Debt pile is a terrible term, isn't it? It's a horrible thing. It said funding the transition to net zero and protecting the UK's public services will need higher spending and more taxes instead of less. So, Jeremy trying to bring the taxes down, they said it's not palatable. It can't be done, considering the goals that the Tory party has for themselves in the future.
What if we got rid of these public services? I don't really need some fat, non-binary communist sitting in a council office somewhere, like doing diversity and equality policy.
Did you just say I'm fat? You just said I was fat, didn't you?
No, no. I've replaced them with you.
Oh, right.
Scott, you are so not a public service. I mean, you are, but you're not in the public sector. You're a very private enterprise.
I'm bloated. You're saying I'm bloated. I know what you mean, but there are a lot of public, services that we do require that need, funding.
Name one.
We have to pave the roads. Schools are public services, aren't they?
Yeah, but do you remember one of those motorways? We're going to have smart motorways, and they took away the extra lane, and now loads of them, they're putting it back. And it's like, well, that was a great use of public funds, that was.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah. I'd like my Wi-Fi free. Can I have that? That'd be nice.
It's not... This is the thing. When the government says something's free, they're just doing it with money they stole from you.
Oh, right.
Also, I don't want the government in charge of my Wi-Fi. I want me in charge of my Wi-Fi. Thank you very much.
That's a great point. Anyway, that's it for part 2, but coming up, we've got rich council tenants, broke councils, wonder how those two fit together, and a 13-year-old who made an anti-Israel protester look stupid. See you in a couple of minutes.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Telegraph now, and the government is going to ban rich people from social housing, which asks the question, why were rich people allowed in social housing in the first place, Cressida?
I learned a lot reading this. High-income earners could be banned from renting council houses.
Yeah.
Could be, maybe.
Yep.
Don't worry, if they're already in, they won't be kicked out.
Well,
This is just a proposal. Yeah, you can. Latest figures are showing that 186,000 social households have a total income exceeding £50,000 despite long waiting lists. I mean, OK, you can't kick people out once they're in. They might get a pay rise. Life might get better for them. But I always thought the point of social housing was to support you
Until you got
to that, and you aspired to something else. But apparently that's not always the case.
Well, Amsana Begum, a Labour MP, lives in a Riverside Council flat in London Borough of Tower Hamlets in my hood. And she's got a salary of £86,584 a year.
Wow, and she's in social housing.
Yes, she is.
I mean, that's
overlooking the River Thames.
Yeah, and she's
not so bad.
And she's a Labour MP who probably goes out and onto protests and says, why isn't the government providing social housing for people? It's like, because you're in it. You're in it. You're on 90 grand and you're in social housing. I mean, that's insane.
Apparently, Bob Crow, the former RMT union boss, he was in social housing at $145,000 a year, and Frank Dobson, as well.
Yeah, I guess maybe for some people on the left, it might be part of their identity. They want to feel like they're down.
I have met people who run comedy clubs up north who've always lived in social housing, and they do quite well. But their parents got that house right after the war, and it was made clear to them at the time that they wouldn't have to move, that they would raise a family there, and the next person in their family coming on would get the house. That was the mentality at the time.
There is a sort of preference for people. I've got a friend, Martin, who lives in Camden, and he grew up in a council estate, so then he gets to rent for a peppercorn rent. He gets to rent a really nice two-bed flat or one-bed flat in Camden. And yeah, it doesn't seem fair when there's people on 30 grand paying tax so that somebody on 90 grand who's in the Labour Party can have a free house.
It kind of promotes generational unemployment too, in a way, I think, or a sense of despair, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. The devil makes work for idle hands. Moving on, we've got The Guardian, and local authorities are going to raise funds by selling off assets. This is good news for anyone looking to buy some wheelie bins and lampposts, Scott.
Which?
It's the 11.
11? Oh, God.
Got it here.
Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, I skipped. Yes, they do. It's probably not a good time to sell, not a great time to sell right now, apparently. Councils in England are to be encouraged to sell publicly owned buildings and other assets worth up to $23 billion under plans explored by ministers to plug budget shortfalls, but the many assets bought in recent years are likely to sell for less than they were paid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it says in this article, at least.
Well, and now this article's helping. I read this, I'm like, great, I'll stop looking for a flat and buy a town hall.
Well,
that's my new plan.
that's what some people in this were saying, but it's the figures from Capital Economics show capital values have dropped by about 20% since mid-2022, with offices recording a fall of 23%.
Right.
And also with the interest rate so high, fewer people are buying. So it's more of a buyer's market. It's probably not a great time to do this. Maybe it might want to wait.
Yeah, and also, couldn't local authorities... What they do in China is they zone land and they sell land to property developers, and we need housing right now. We could rezone, repurpose some of these buildings as housing, and the local authorities could start coining it in.
Yeah, that's it. Although you can only do it once. This is what bothers me. Once you've sold land, like, well, now it's gone, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know, maybe if it's just the building, fair enough, but...
They could redevelop it and make it into social housing.
Yeah.
And then, rent it out to people who are making...
Give it to some rich people.
They're going to buy it anyway, so why don't you just give it to them?
Moving on, we've got The Telegraph now reporting on a 13-year-old who interviewed an anti-Israel protester, and he was better than anyone I've seen on the BBC, Cressida.
The 13-year-old reporter challenging Gaza protesters. The BBC are too neutral. That's his opinion. So this is 13-year-old Josh. He's from a Jewish family. And he went out, he's been watching the BBC, and in his opinion, it was too neutral, and it wasn't calling out the war in Gaza the way he saw it. So he went to some of these protests, and he says he just wanted to speak to people himself. At times, he felt that the crowd was hostile, but he selected people who he thought might be good to interview while his father filmed the exchanges.
And we've got a little clip of the interview here.
Hamas was set up by Israel.
Hamas was set up by Israel?
Who helped to set up Hamas?
When? Sorry. Finance Hamas? Yeah. I thought it was the Iranians that were financing Hamas.
Oh, that's propaganda. Are you Jewish?
No. I mean, it doesn't matter.
No, I just wondered, but are you a Zionist?
No, it doesn't matter.
It does matter to me if you're a Zionist.
So, Cresta, he's much better informed than the woman that he's the adult that he's interviewing.
She's an idiot.
I mean, she denies that Hamas are funded by Iran. I mean, like, Iran don't deny that.
No, well, quite exactly. It's going to kill, isn't it, on social media? People love it. Some people like it. You know, like they get kids to sing in adverts, whatever. A child brings... not you, obviously, you hate it, but...
No, the IDF have reposted it, then they praised him.
Right.
And he did say that if there's any anti-Semitism coming forward, he would edit that out and move on. He wanted people to speak up, but not to yell up and not to accuse people of stuff, although he did include this part in the interview. She does sound anti-Semitic to me, I mean, arguably. But also, I think what he's trying to do is to find a way where people can bridge the gap. I think he lives in an area that's probably diverse, and he wonders why people can't just have this conversation without accusing one another of having she accuses him of having some sort of agenda. He's 13.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's very relaxing, isn't it, compared to most stuff we see on Twitter. That's a nice video to watch.
I was saying at the commercial break that my local co-op owner told me that Zionism is evil and started to lecture me about the rights and wrongs of Israel. And I said, well, what about... He didn't know who the Black Panthers were. Right. I mean, he's 24. So these people are really unskilled in reading.
Well, we've seen so many times people being interviewed when they're on protests and, not knowing what the phrase, what the slogan on the placard that they're waving
what the
means.
river is, what the sea is.
Which river, which
It's worse than TfL, see it, say it, sort it. They're not quite sure what's the slogan from the river to which river.
Man, you can't bring it up in a comedy club. You criticize gays from Palestine, you get heckled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they threaten to throw you off the roof. That's ironic. But yeah, it's really rough out there. But our job as comics is to make people listen a little.
Although things are better for gays in Palestine now because they're running out of roofs to throw them off. So every cloud.
That was our strategy.
Anyway, we've got The Guardian now, and 120 grand might seem like a decent salary, but a minister has quit because it wasn't enough for him, Scott.
Sure, an MP has quit. George Freeman said that an increase from £800 to £2,000 per calendar month in his mortgage payments from this month on means that he can no longer afford to be working for... He's resigned from government. But I did read on, and he does have a lot of costs. He was left with financial overhead after a divorce from his wife, a lawyer from whom he separated in 2014. You know she nailed him. She's a lawyer.
Oh, she's a lawyer, yeah.
And then he's paying maintenance costs for his 2 children and their educational costs. And then his
educational costs.
Yes,
It's free. I thought it was free.
No,
Unless that means like a backpack and a couple of textbooks.
He's got them in one of those schools they got to pay and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So much for public services.
Well, maybe it'll sharpen his awareness of the issue for the
My
public.
mortgage tripled in November.
Really?
Yeah. I feel for the guy. I know exactly what he means.
Is it coming down now?
No. Why would it? No, it's not going to come down for 2 years. And it made it almost impossible for me to just play the circuit.
Right.
I mean, I think a lot of comics are leaving the circuit because they can't afford it anymore.
Another silver lining.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
More work for you.
But one of the things he says is we're in danger of making politics something that only hedge fund donors, young spin doctors and failed trade unionists can afford to do. I mean, he's on 120 grand. I don't think it's like...
But it's shocking, though. I mean, who knows how much his wife got? I mean, if they're splitting that... If he's paying her half of what he's making and he's paying for the kids, then that cuts him down to about 50 grand a year, and you really can't after that, afford.
Yeah.
Well, some of us can.
Maybe he'll move in those girlfriends, save a bit of money.
Yeah, well, and after tax, he's going to be on minus 12 grand. And Sajid Javid, I mean, we do see that there's a problem with attracting talent into politics. You might have noticed, but people like Sajid Javid came in. He had to take a 98% pay cut to come from the world of finance to the world of politics. So maybe we do need to. I mean, in Singapore, I think they pay everybody the equivalent of like $1 million, and you're not allowed to have be a director of any firm that you could Michelle Moan some money out of.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Oh,
I mean,
fair.
I think the founding fathers of the U.S. would be so devastated to see the kind of amount of money politicians make when they're in office and then when they leave.
Yeah.
It's not. It's meant to be a hobby, politics.
Yeah, and also the amazing their accuracy on the stock market, like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, the amount of luck
it's pretty good,
some
right?
people have.
Yeah, how does that happen?
Incredible.
How does she manage it?
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know. Maybe we should go into politics and find out. We've got the Mail now with what looks like proof that there are differences between men and women. Cressida.
Men don't just get higher wages, they expect them to. Male students anticipate being paid 15% more than females in their first job after university, study finds. So, yeah, if you ask a young man if he's going to make it big, he goes, yeah, of course I am. And the women say, oh, I don't know, I'm sorry, or something like that. So no one's ever...
Sounded just like you.
Well, no one's ever studied it before, but I could have told you. I mean, I don't know, it's good that they're looking at this. The gender pay gap is well documented in Britain. I would argue that that's all nonsense. It's, women want to have babies, all that stuff. Women and men work differently. Men earn danger money, blah, blah, blah. But this is about expecting higher wages, right? So it's a percentage. So you could be doing a typical female job, and the point is that women don't haggle for their money, and men do. And so very sensibly at the end, it suggests that we train women to argue for more money. I think that's a great idea.
But it did say that women are paid 3.3% higher in part-time temporary positions.
Right.
So they do make more in one area, and then men make more in full-time positions, about 7% more. It kind of balances out. But I also think women should just work harder. And maybe
it's a really complicated...
Do better in
Warren
school,
Farrell
I guess.
has written a whole book about this. It's a really complicated thing. And what it isn't is discrimination. And the reason I don't think it's discrimination is because I've been a woman for several decades, and I just don't think that's what happens. And on top of that, if you were able to prove discrimination, you'd be hung out to dry. You'd be in so much trouble.
Yeah, and also any CEOs could instantly slash, 15% off their wage bill by only hiring women, and yet, maintaining the exact same
I looked it up
service.
recently, too, because my husband's searching for a job, maybe in the U.S. He finally got his green card, and we found out that the highest-paid individuals in San Francisco are Asian females.
Right.
So
interesting. But there'll be few of them. And if you look at your Pareto distribution, bell curves, blah, 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 on average, the blokes are up here and the women are here looking after the kids. And that's... and when we're always hearing in Scandinavia, they try to level it out and people go, on average, towards their typical gender stuff. I personally think that there's a bit more nature than nurture going on there. But, yeah, great, get the women to argue more. I work with very chopsy, confident men, and I would love training.
I'm going to be patriarchal now and shut you down.
But turn the ladies into men. They want to do that now. They can buy that part and have it attached. It's good,
We're at the halfway point, but join us in a moment for trans pool players, weak men.
Exactly.
And why a politician is angry about her boobs. We'll be right back.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the male and female pool players are protesting over players being allowed to bring their own balls, Scott.
Exactly. So, apparently these pool players, these females, capital F female, real ones, are saying that they're suing the governing body over its transgender policy in a landmark legal case. They say it's discriminative to allow trans women to compete, claiming that trans women have a physical advantage. They can play faster and harder with their balls and stuff than the women can. And there's one female player who's quite well known, I think. She's former world #1 Maria Catalano, and she says that these transgender players are unfair. Lynn Pinches, who forfeited a major final she was scheduled to play against a transgender woman, said, I'm self-excluding because I'm turning down an opportunity. I'm not going to play this match at all.
So we're seeing women being pushed out of women's sports, Chris.
Yeah.
It sounds like the patriarchy's back.
You're winning, baby. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is exactly what Riley Gaines has been saying.
Yeah.
It's the end of women's sport, isn't it?
They're afraid this could set a legal precedent for all sport, obviously, where women would not be allowed to play women or men or something. Who knows? Where, yes, men... Yeah, it's confusing.
Well, this happening is like a potluck, isn't it? Some sports are saying absolutely not. Some sports are saying, yes, we'll let the trans women play. There's a mixture. We're kind of in the deciding time.
Overall, it seems to me the sports seem to say, we don't mind if trans women work out with us. If they train with us, that's fine. Even if they compete with us. But when it comes to money, the higher
Say that.
money,
I think the women in the changing rooms with Leah Thomas weren't that thrilled, actually, about that.
And also, just last week, we saw a 50-year-old biological male competing with 13-year-old schoolgirls. Right. Which, you know...
Where was that allowed? Here?
No, that was in America. Right. And the parents went along with it because they felt, you know, sort of under pressure. They didn't want to look like bigots. You know, they haven't reached that point yet.
There's not one sensible parent that will run up there, really, and pull the wig off and say, "Get this perv out of the room"?
There wasn't even a
Nobody.
What
about their children?
He had a bald head. He's like, "Yeah, guess what? I'm a woman." I mean, it's an absolute nonsense.
When does
It's a clown show.
self-preservation kick in with people? I don't get it.
People are going to look back in 20 years' time and be like, "What on earth were you doing? This is worse than bell bottoms."
We're looking at it right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But this could draw a line in the sand. So under the Equality Act in this country, apparently the provisions are clear and protect biological women against the obvious disadvantage they experience in having to compete against males in gendered sports. So yeah, I mean this could be something that can then be
applied to other situations.
Well, that's true, but that's from 2010, so it's not like this wasn't here already last week. But maybe it'll get
maybe this is the
applied.
first time it's actually been tried in this way. Moving on, we've got the Mail now with a solution to the epidemic of low testosterone, gimpy left-wing men who are ruining Western civilization. Cressida.
Revealed the secret male-only camp in Bali that claims we're in the end of an era of weak men. We're in an era of weak men. So it trains guests to become superheroes. So obviously Scott and I are going on holiday to Bali.
It's so hot. Have you watched the Instagram videos? Have you watched the...
No, I haven't watched the videos.
Testimonials.
Well,
Jeez, free porn.
Ridiculous. In the beginning,
guys
I thought
are delicious. They are. They're all like push-ups.
I thought, it's going to be, what is it going to be, turning him into Bear Grylls or something? And when you read on, it's basically a fancy gym and somebody cooks for them. This is the problem. No, it's
tiny
not.
short shorts. Listen, there's only one path. Tiny steps. You have to run all these steps to get up there. It's only one path. You're only allowed if you're in your tiny short shorts and you have a shaved chest.
I don't think it says that.
Oh,
that's your
so cute.
version of this.
This doesn't sound.
It's a holiday.
This doesn't sound that masculine.
No, you can work and you find out who you really are. You really set your goals. You set your goals.
You can go to the gym. You can go to the gym and you can have a massage. That's how
a massage in Bali. There's nothing masculine about this. This is part of the problem.
A private massage.
Moving on, we've got the Metro now, and a news network helped out an Australian politician by making her more attractive, but she's furious for some reason. Some women are just never happy, I guess, Cressida.
That's the moon. No, MP's anger after News Network photoshops her breasts and midriff.
Oh, God.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you? She's looked in the paper and there she is, but it's not her. It's an improved... Actually, there's a guy that does this to us on Headliners on Twitter. He makes AI of us, and sometimes I look at them and think, I wish I looked like that.
We have an image of this Australian politician.
Let's see it.
Let's have a look. So this is that's her actual photograph on the right, and on the left you can see they've given her a midriff, they've showed her stomach, and they've also augmented, using some
nice rack,
some darkening.
Yeah.
You know what? That actually could be just darkening, shading from the backdrop to the letters. So they might have just accidentally made her boobs.
But who doesn't want bigger boobs? We all want.
I want bigger boobs.
In Bali, those men want bigger boobs to be bigger men, right? Yeah. How are your boobs?
Grief.
Right.
Well, apparently it was the AI. They're very sorry. They're claiming that the people that did it didn't mean to do it.
They saying it's AI.
Well, they're saying our graphics department sourced an online image of Georgie to use in our story on duck hunting. Maybe I've misread this. Anyway, the point is... Oh, here we go. During the process, the automation by Photoshop created an image that was not consistent with the original.
I see. That's a very clever excuse.
There you go.
Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Wednesday's front pages. The Daily Mail has Bashir. I was a victim of racism inside the BBC. I knew those guys were like that. The Telegraph has Navy ready to send carrier to Red Sea. That's a boat, not a bag. The Guardian has state of NHS should be declared national emergency, experts say. The Times leads with little room for big tax cuts, Hunt tells Tories. The iNews has Cameron didn't clear two-state solution speech with number 10. And finally, the Daily Star has Rise of the Cyborgs. And those were front pages. And that's it for tonight's show. Thanks so much to Scott and Cressida. They're both brilliant. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with me, Lewis and Kerry Marks. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. Good night.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers,